Welcome to the 5AM podcast, where we bring you insightful conversations with thought leaders and influencers who are making headway and some waves in their callings. Now, today, we are thrilled to have a guest who is a child wellness expert, a registered nurse, and an award-winning author of the book, Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow, forming deeper and more joyful connections with yourself and your children. Her book has received multiple literary awards. With recent developments now in food safety regulations and growing concerns about children's nutrition, Holly's expertise is more relevant now than ever. And our conversation today will be about nurturing healthier, happier, and you could say more successful families. Now, before we roll that intro, please share this with some friends and your networks. I know that you're going to think of some people as we're going through this conversation to share this with, so please do that. I know many people are going to enjoy our conversation. Now, two other things that you could do to help us out. Number one is give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast player. And if you're thinking of a number between 0 and 5, they tell us that a 4 is the same as a 0. So hit that 5-star review. We would appreciate that. And the last thing before we roll that intro is head over to buymeacoffee.com/5AMPodcast and drop a couple virtual bills into that barrel. Now, here's that intro. Holly Swenson, welcome to the 5AM podcast.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, it's great to make your acquaintance across the interwebs. And let's start out with your book, Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow. Can you explain this method and how it helps parents form a deeper connection with their children?
Yeah. So, writing my first book, Stop, Drop, Grow, and Glow, really was a deep calling and just a way that I could be of service to parents everywhere. And so my book is a 4-part framework that's designed to help parents everywhere really just find their thrive instead of feeling like they're just barely surviving the extended season of parenthood. I myself am the mother of 4 boys. And so I'm really walking this path alongside, all the parents out there. And so I've had to discover different ways of finding wellness. My oldest twins are 14, and so I've been at it now for a while. But I really just wrote this book as a way to help our people, find more intentionality, more joy, cultivate more self-awareness, and ultimately just nurture, healthier relationships for themselves. Because I believe you have individual, but you're also a parent. So how can you show up for yourself in a healthier way and also pass that on to your children?
Right. And there's so many distractions that can come in and other influences that want to take either your child's time outside of the home or take away the parents' time. And everyone really has to set some priorities. And I guess that would lead to the word intention. Can you talk about illustrating or maybe training our children to be more intentional as they're growing and developing those relationships?
Right. Yes, absolutely. So I think something that comes to mind immediately when you talk about intention, is role modeling. And so parent, I'll speak to screens because that's something that's a very pervasive issue. So being intentional in setting time every day for, putting your screens away where you can connect with one another. And so your children are always watching you, they're sponges. And so really, like a great way to implement this would be dinner time. And that I've to before, where it's like you are, you're intentionally sitting down, connecting, you're processing and unpacking the day with each other, and really trying to do it in a way that is intentional, where you're giving each other, your full attention, you're making eye contact, you're really checking in with one another. And so that's a great way to become more intentional. It's a great invitation for families out there to maybe consider, putting screens away for dinner time, and so that you can really connect. And again, that's role modeling from the top down, but it's a great way to help teach your children how to have time every day that's intentional and fostering more connection.
Right. And it's probably a great opportunity to teach your children about making lists and scheduling. And I often think about John D. Rockefeller had a saying that they had a 100-year plan for every dollar that the company made. And so that meant that, sorry, that dollar can't be used for this. It has to be used for what it's planned for. Could you talk about scheduling within a family and bringing children into that so that they learn that skill for later in life?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of scheduling. We have 6 people in our family, so I feel like I'm always, scheduling or making lists or a sort of thing, keeping the calendar. And I think it's a great skill to build for our children because it helps them with organization, knowing where they need to put their attention for the day, and I
Yeah.
think also string more accountability so that they learn how to keep track of time, but also like what's on my my planner for the day, and how can I show up on, be timely,
Yep.
and be accountable, whatever that is. But I think it's just, again, it comes back to role modeling. So if you are a parent that doesn't, make lists or keep track of things, your children might not learn those skills. And so I think that's really a top down thing as well. And as my children are stepping in, to their teenage years, I really see where they're going to need to be adept at knowing how to keep their time as they get
Mm.
to launch in life. So it's
Yeah.
definitely an important skill.
Now, does your book touch at all about mentorship? Now, we don't normally think of mentorship in parenting and in families, and a lot of the conversations here at 5AM Podcast are about business or politics and other things like that. But do you see a role for parents actually finding not necessarily their parents, but other older couples who could mentor them in parenting?
Yeah, I love that idea. I don't speak to mentorship per se in my book, but I think that mentorship is a fabulous way to go. And I think
Mhm.
that there are other, adult figures in life, in your communities, maybe in sports and, faith community or whatever,
Yeah.
you spend your time that can be an invaluable asset to your child as they grow. And they can give your children different pearls of wisdom that maybe you can't, or you don't see gifts. And so everyone carries something slightly different. So I'm all in favor of mentorship. I think it's a great
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. And we can never give somebody something that we don't possess. And so when we're in relationship with people who maybe have crossed a few rivers in their life or become a little bit wiser through their experiences, it's wonderful for both parents and children to understand that there's always room to grow. I do want to just shift our focus a little bit to the work that's going on in the presidential administrative halls and relationships. And of course, we hear that there's a recent FDA decision, such as banning red dye number 3, and it's highlighted concerns over artificial items that might be in foods that parents will feed to their children or that children will consume when they're over at their friend's place. Can you talk about how parents can navigate these changes to ensure their children's health?
Sure. Yeah. And if you don't mind, I'll give a little backdrop of what Red
Sure.
Tree is, because I think there's a lot of people who don't even know, don't know
Mhm.
much of artificial dyes. And so Red 3 is a synthetic dye that is petroleum based, and it's not found in nature. And so this dye in particular gives drinks and food a bright cherry red color. And really, these artificial dyes are used to enhance the visual appeal. So that's why they're being added to foods. And so currently there are 36 FDA approved color additives, 9 of which are synthetic dyes. And so
Mm.
I think it's always just good to have a little information. And so this red dye 3 was banned as a matter of law because there was research that shows that that's a known carcinogen in animals, specifically laboratory rats. Okay, so that's why this was recently banned. And in terms of ways families can safeguard their children, it really comes to empowering yourself and reading labels, because there are a lot of products that still contain red 3. And these food companies still have until 2027 to reformulate their products. So they're still going to be in foods. And then for ingested drugs, things like cough syrups, they have until 2028. Wow. So it's about doing some of your own research, reading labels, and just paying attention to what you're feeding your family, especially for like candy. So if you're wondering like what kind of food, so candies, frostings and icings, meal replacement drinks and bars, ice pops, those sorts of things. They're in a lot of different products out there.
All the fun, unhealthy stuff that needs some pizzazz to get you to take it and ingest it. Now, you've mentioned that, I'll put this in air quotes, our main customer base is children, so we've got to be extra responsible. How does this philosophy shape your approach to children's wellness?
Well, I guess I don't totally follow the question, but so how do we help our children? How do we help our children navigate?
Yes, that's right. And maybe teaching our children about the quality of food and actually what can be in it, and that, there's sometimes harmful or beneficial things, and making good choices, I guess.
Absolutely. So yes, I think it's just, opening the door for conversation and, sharing that, there are good foods that help your body feel good and your mind feel good. There are also foods that don't. And, and I think giving them a little backdrop, is helpful. So explain to them what artificial dyes are, and again, that goes back to doing some research and putting it in language that makes sense to your child, depending on what age they are. But then I also, I think it's also a gateway for talking about the importance of, trying to get more whole foods into your diet and teaching them, foods that make them feel good and foods that might not make them feel so good. And the other issue with Red 3, and is that it's been linked to impulsivity, hyperactivity, and for children who have ADHD, that it can make symptoms worse. And so I think just having dialogue with your children that some of these foods are not going to help them in the short or long.
Yeah. And it really is helping children to look long term at what they want their life to be. And now it's like, oh, here's another foundation, the food foundation for our future. So your background as a registered nurse, I'm sure, brings a unique perspective to parenting. How does your medical knowledge influence your parenting advice?
Well, I think that, you learn as you learn as you go. And so, I've always been a natural caregiver from a young age. And so becoming a nurse, and then becoming a mother of 4, and I've been caregiving in a lot of different ways, throughout my life. But I think it gives me more of a scientific lens to look through. And really, I just am so drawn to trying to create more wellness in the world for people. And so, for things like products, artificial dyes, and having more wellness around food, I think food really should be, there's a concept known as food as medicine. And so I think that we have become very relaxed in this country, and the food that we're feeding our people is making us sick, a lot of it. And so, with my background, I really just want to, I think, bring more awareness to these issues. People have more information so they can make more educated decisions. And it's also like, I think it's 2/3 of Americans are in favor of restricting or reformulating processed food to remove unnecessary sugars and dyes. And so I think there's really growing pressure from the general public to reform our food and to help our children grow in a healthier way.
Yeah. Yeah. And certainly we're seeing a lot of that, especially comparing what Europe is allowing into the food chain and what they're banning from the food chain. It makes a big difference once people realize that, it is such a critical component and something that we really need to be intentional about. You advocate for mindfulness in parenting. So this, I guess, connects to food, but to other things as well. Can you share some practical tips for parents to incorporate mindfulness into their daily routines with their children?
Sure. Well, so we're talking about food. You can be, mindful in terms of making healthier choices, because I'm always in favor of that. And so, you can infuse that. You can also, try to be more mindful as you're eating and slow down and give, be grateful for the food you're eating. Maybe you do it all together, or you do it, silently, or, but, pause and be mindful in that way. You can infuse mindfulness in so many different ways. One thing that I write about in my book is reminders. And so it can be like I have pieces of art in my house, or quotes, or I have certain pieces of jewelry that I'll, put on every now and then, and it helps me to remember. So like, I feel like a lot of us live on autopilot, and we're just through the motions of our day. And I think there's a lot of reaction in the world. And so why I have those pieces, or, inspirational quotes or that sort of thing, is it helps me to remember, so that if I'm, flying around, because I'm busy, we all are busy in our own way, and I get caught up in life just like everyone else. And so when I see that quote, or I, feel a bracelet I have on my wrist, it's a way for me to remember my mindfulness, to try to recenter my, myself in joy, and not feel so overwhelmed with what life is asking. So there's a lot of little ways that you can help inspire yourself and your family to step into just more intentionality, and again, just being grateful for what you're doing, even if it feels tough at moments. I think those tough moments are what help shape us and help us grow in life.
Yeah, that adversity is such a valuable component to life. So one of the things that could arise from implementing what we're talking about is anxiety in children. And so how can parents help their children that might be anxious about implementing changes for their benefit?
Mm. Yeah, well, I think that's a really great question. I think what I would say is start small. If you want to implement changes in your family and your children are feeling anxious about it, maybe don't take everything if you're talking about food, maybe don't take everything away at once, but do it incrementally. Go slow, so that they have time to adjust, and just think about if it's something that you love, that somebody came in and said, I'm taking all of these things away, that would probably give you anxiety as an adult. So
Yes.
when you're talking about children, I would say, again, baby step it, and slowly add more healthful, if it's food, more healthful food into the mix, as you slowly let go of the foods that aren't serving you or your children. So I think that would be a great place to start.
Yeah. And have you come across maybe some misconceptions in this topic that maybe you've heard from your readers or people that have heard you on other podcasts, that there have been some misconceptions that have come up that you've been able to chat with parents about?
In terms of in what kind of misconceptions?
Just about how to implement or to make their family home a little bit more structured, or to building that team mindset maybe in a family.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that's so interesting with families is each family is so unique and different. So, I think, when you're talking about parenting, what works for one family might not work for another family. And so I think it's really learning to, I think, look at who your family is, and then I think lean on resources that really are working for you, and letting go of anything that's not really serving your family, because even within a one family unit, you can have something that works for one child, but it doesn't work for another child. So I think it's really learning to be more reflective of your own journey as a parent, and again, I think just partnering with those things that seem like they're going well, and letting go of things that aren't really bolstering your journey to date.
Yeah, it is a little bit of trial and error and seeing which techniques work and
Right.
what doesn't. And I wanted to ask you, I had noticed in the research for this interview that your book has received multiple awards, including the Pencraft Award for best book in nonfiction parenting. What do you think resonates most with the readers about your approach?
Yeah. So I think for me, it's kind of been very humbling, and I've been so grateful for these wins. This was my first book, and so I didn't really know what to expect when I really launched out into the world. And so I think what comes to me when you ask me that question is just authenticity. I really wrote this book from the heart. I tried to write it from a perspective that that would feel relatable. I think sometimes being a parent, it can be somewhat isolating. You don't know if other people are going through some of the same struggles you're going through or some of the same joys. And so I really just wanted to write it in a way that almost felt like I was holding the hand of the reader, of like, hey, we're all together. We're all trying to figure it out. And it's always slowly evolving. The parenting journey, it's constantly changing. So, you might be, what might be working today might not work for you tomorrow. So it's always this slightly shifting journey. But for me, I think just writing this book, I tried to be authentic. I tried to be real, and I think it's probably what resonates. But I don't know. I don't what's working for years.
People love that authenticity, and they can often find it in pages of certain books. Certainly, I just wanted to ask you, the concept of living in your glow is central to your work. Can you explain what this means and maybe how parents can help their children find their own glow?
Yeah. So in my framework, it's, stop, drop, grow, and glow. And so it builds on itself. And I really think you have to go back and do some foundational work as a parent. And so, for example, stop, the first part of my book is really about stopping and doing self-assessment on how you're doing today, like as a human being, but also as a parent. And I think just really giving yourself that moment to check in with yourself, because I think a lot of people get thrown into parenthood and they might have stuff that's unprocessed or they're carrying that's impacting what's in front of them with their children. And so, and then when you're talking about drop, it's learning to drop any drama, trauma, personal past lived experiences that are keeping you from living in the now. All right. So this is real brief what I'm sharing. There's a lot more
Of course.
And then grow is learning to lean on habits, sleep, diet, movement. There's a lot there, but it slowly builds. And then by the time you get to glow, it's learning to really, I think, take what you've learned and then learning to live it in the world. And so a big component of glow is also self-care. I think self-care is something that for a long time has been framed as being selfish. And so what I found as a mother is when I don't take care of myself, I'm not as good at taking care of those in my life. So self-care is a central theme to that section. But it's really, doing the work on yourself to show up as the best version of you as often as you can.
Right.
And so that's what it really means to live your glow. And so I hope that answers that.
Sure. Absolutely. So is that connected to the 5 rights of parenting framework?
Yes. Yeah, it definitely is. Without a doubt.
Yeah. And in your experience, maybe what are some of the maybe the pitfalls that parents, maybe you've answered this already, so we can move on if I have, but I was just thinking about the pitfalls that parents can, as they're finding something that they think would work really well within the home, are there those pitfalls that could come up or surprise people where they have to pivot in what they're doing?
Well, kids are unpredictable. So
Yes.
I think there's always pitfalls. I think they also have, outside influence that you have to, kind of manage and navigate. And so, and then I think as kids get older, they become more independent. And so there's testing of boundaries. And so, yes, there are definitely pitfalls along the journey that you have to navigate at each age. And so, yes, that is without a doubt going to be part of the journey of being a parent.
Absolutely. Yeah. And maybe that's where the joy comes in, because your book talks about forming those joyful connections. And in today's world, the stress and different strategies, are there things that parents can do to help build that joy into that relationship?
Yes, 100%. So that really stems, in my opinion, joy stems from self-care. It comes from making sure that you feel nourished and taken care of as a human being, as an independent, individual outside of being a mother or father.
Yeah.
Because when you are taking care of yourself, so being a parent is the most awesome role you're going to fill. But I think in terms of really feeling joyful, I think you really have to prioritize taking care of yourself as well. It can be like anything from like continuing to learn or leaning on hobbies that you really enjoy, or as well as also including your children in fun activities. So joy comes in many different forms, but I think, again, taking care of yourself, prioritizing you so that you can prioritize your children, including your children in activities that are enjoyable for the whole family. Those are great ways to find more.
Yeah, that really gives the picture of, God forbid something should happen on an airplane flight and those, the air masks fall out of not the sky, but the ceiling. And we're all told you got to do it to help yourself first so that you can help other people. So I don't think we touched specifically on self-care for parents, but you dovetailed that well in with joy, in that the parents really need to take care of themselves as well. Correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So how can our viewers get in touch with you?
Yeah. So you can visit my website. I'm at liveyourglow.live. And I have, if you are interested in my book, you can find that on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you buy your audiobooks. It's also available on Audible and anywhere you buy your audiobooks. And then I'm only on one social media platform, on Instagram. And so my handle there is at Holly Swenson _liveyourglow.
Awesome. That's great. And now one other question, and maybe you've answered this already, but I don't think so. Looking ahead, what do you see as the biggest challenges or maybe opportunities in child wellness that you maybe foresee coming in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest challenge, I'll give you a statistic because I think it's a shocking one that I think a lot of people don't know. Poor diet is the leading cause of mortality in the U.S. It contributes 500,000 deaths per year. And so, when we're talking about children, if you're looking at obesity rates, they've doubled in adults, they've tripled in children, and quadrupled in adolescents. And so diet is so important. And that's why I'm hopeful that we're going to be headed in the right direction, with cleaning up some of our food issues that we're currently facing, because I think we have to prioritize health. And so I think that's number one. I think movement. I would love to see our kids moving more in schools. I think we aren't getting our kids moving enough. And so I think diet and exercise are two of the big ones.
Yeah, that's excellent. Now, that's a great spot to leave our conversation with today, is that it being intentional in diet and exercise through the generations so that we have a healthy, happy, and successful life and family. So Holly, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was great to talk about this actually very important subject. And certainly those future choices or choices to enhance our future affects us all. So thank you very much for that. And also thank you to our viewers. We appreciate you being here and joining in on this conversation. And if you haven't already, definitely check out Holly's website, share this with your friends and networks. I'm sure that you've thought of somebody that you can step on their toes and send it to them. I'm not responsible for the fallout of that decision, but you're just trying to help, right? So share this with your friends and family. And don't forget the 5-star review for 5AM Podcast and buymeacoffee.com/5AMPodcast if you'd like to support the show that way. And thanks again. Until next time, may you seize your day and enjoy each sunrise and sunset. I'm Michael Clausen.